Hello and welcome to Obstacle Illusion with April Gallagher and Anna Clint.
Anna Clint, that's me.
And Anna Clint. This is episode 3, and we're continuing on the theme of power. We had such a power trip last episode that we thought we'd stick with it. Mostly because I think over the course of the week, we just noticed all these places where power is possible to give away. And so this particular one is power and anger.
Rawr. Anger. Woo-wee.
And I don't know, I mean, I had some experiences this week that gave me some insight into it, but I feel like I've already done all the talking so far. So if you want to say something, go for it.
Well, I will just say that when it comes to anger, like I feel like I'm a total expert because I lived so much of my life and I was just so angry. Oh man, I was so angry. As a child, I was angry. As a young adult, I was just so angry. It just kind of consumed me. So I think this is a great topic because, one, anger, has there's so many issues around anger, but we'll just try to what we really want to talk about though. And I really want to hear what you have to say about it. But what we want to talk about is like in this context of like how we give our power away when we're angry or with anger issues. Is that what you're getting at? I see you nodding.
Well, I mean, I don't know, like I'm like totally enthralled now. I was like, well, damn, this woman like has anger issues. I mean, had anger issues. So you definitely have a lot more to say about anger than I do. How about I just say what my experience was it this week?
That would be great.
It sounds like you've actually overcome a lot of it. So,
well, I hope so.
Well, that's why we do dual locations, right? In case you get out of hand, I'm still safe.
Yeah, but you better watch your back though.
I've got my guard dog back there somewhere.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah, he's got your back, totally.
Got my back. So, I was talking with a client this week and we were talking about anger, and I was thinking about my experience with anger. And I was thinking about after my second child was born, I went through a period, and I'm not exactly sure when it started, where I was just angry all the time. I felt like a kettle that at any point was gonna boil, and I wasn't sure, I was just angry. And I noticed that it was even worse. Certain things made it worse, which was, for example, well, it was mostly with my kids, but not being able to cuss. Like I felt like I couldn't cuss. This is like my way into understanding anger, was that I felt like I had this energy within me that I wanted to release, and I couldn't release it because I felt like it was inappropriate to cuss in front of my kids. And then that like made it even worse. And what I realized, what all of that was powerlessness.
Oh yeah, totally.
So
100%.
For me, and at least what I connected with this week, was that my experience with power, my experience with power, my experience with anger is that it seems like the root cause is powerlessness. So I was interacting with my children, and I was powerless to get them to go to bed, or whatever those things were that in those moments were causing me anger, or and I felt powerless to change the situation, and so that created anger for me, and then I became even less effective, right?
Yeah, right.
And the takeaway that I had from it was that when I was able to, or over the years of figuring this out a little bit better, parenting and taking back my own power, is that it requires a level of letting go. It requires a surrender to what is presenting. It does require like complete surrender to like a sense of powerlessness in order to then align with like where your true power is, and then meet the situation for how it's presenting.
Yeah,
right.
sure.
And I think the anger was just an indication of you've misidentified with what you think power is the ability to change the situation. Like power is the ability to align with really what's being asked of you in order to meet the situation with compassion or whatever.
Yeah.
So
I like that.
That's my power story.
Yeah. I think you're totally dead on, like spot on. Powerlessness. And that definitely like sums up the, you know, so much of my experience. I mean, I grew up in a very emotionally chaotic and unstable environment. And, you know, by the time I was a teenager, I was just not having it anymore. I couldn't take that exactly what you said, that sense of powerlessness. And then, you know, I just like carried that anger and that resentment, you know, and the inability to, you know, I didn't have any of the tools. You know, we don't have tools when we're kids to kind of deal with that stuff, unless, you know, you're kids or something.
Right.
I didn't have those tools. Most people don't get those tools as kids.
Right.
And yeah, it's that powerlessness. And it was a very gradual kind of undoing of that. And I don't really even have conscious awareness of how it happened. And honestly, like some days I'm kind of afraid that it's just stuffed way down deep inside. I don't really think that's true, but I just feel like there's just gotta be some resonances. And of course, you know, like I've done a ton of energetic healing work and things like that. But even before I started doing that work, like a lot of it just kind of, you know, the maturity of just moving into your 30s. I mean, I think by the time I was in my 30s, I was really able to look at things very differently. But yeah, let's talk about that key thing of like aligning with, you know, essentially like aligning with source energy, we could call it, with higher knowing, wisdom, like all that is this thing that's like bigger than we are.
Right.
If someone's listening to this right now and they're like, oh my gosh, I have so much anger, or I've stuffed so much stuff from my past and starting to come up and I don't know why I feel so angry right now.
Yeah.
And let's just be clear, like anger is a really strong word, but irritability, disgruntledness, discouragement, like frustration is a form of anger. What else? What are other things that people could be queuing into in their lives if they don't resonate with anger?
I don't know.
I think frustration's a good one. Boy, especially like always. I was going to say, especially right now. Like, no, like, especially always.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think insert what you're experiencing now there and see if there's some anger. Or powerlessness, right? I mean, so it's see if there's some sense of powerlessness.
Yeah. Oh, and just an aside, like what's popping in right now is like this reminder that, you know, often feeling depressed, and I'm not talking necessarily about like super chronic, you know, big, like capital D depression, but like, you know, lowercase d depression is often, I've heard people say it's like anger turned within, like turned back on yourself. And so like, that's where we're like, we don't get to express, we don't, you know, like what you described, we don't have that safe, like it's inappropriate to be angry. And of course there's like so many women that feel like it's really inappropriate to be angry, especially like in the workplace, or women of color are not supposed to be angry, you know, like all of this stuff around like just expressing yourself. We're talking about like, you know, the underlying broiling stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
I just interesting, the one thing that you mentioned, like the women of color aren't supposed to be angry, and because you can extrapolate that is because women of color aren't supposed to feel powerful, right? Like
Totally.
let's make
Totally.
sure that they
chills.
never recognize their power, right? So like it's like we're going to take away all your power and we're not even, you know,
gonna let you express
you express it, because it's like really we're going to tamp that down.
Yeah, that just gave me chills.
So I mean, I think our time is probably almost done, and I want to leave with something like how to put it into action. And I think the thing with anger, like you said, it's super huge and it's super powerful, and maybe playing in some areas that are less um emotionally overwhelming, like
Mm-hmm.
these frustrations, and just start noticing. I mean, so all of this is a practice, right?
Yeah.
And so the way to get good at this is to not start
Yeah.
in like the full blown, like, don't like pull this out for the first time when you're like completely overcome with anger,
Yeah.
right? But like start noticing those little frustrations
Mm-hmm.
or those little irritations that happen, moment after moment, and see whether you can take a breath and allow whatever's irritating you or annoying you. Can you take a breath and take a step back and just recognize
Yeah.
that this little irritation could be presenting for you, in order for you to recognize that you're currently giving your power away to
Mm.
like this little thing, like
Right.
this little annoyance.
Right.
Because it's annoying you, you have thereby like given it permission to take your power. And
Absolutely.
it's like, so just start playing with, and just decide, like, do I want to know who I am? Do I
Mm-hmm.
want to align with this like infinite power and know myself as like creator? Or do I want to be annoyed in this moment? And
Right.
there's going to be a shit ton of times where you're going to be like, I want to be annoyed. And that's
Totally.
fine. And that's fine, right? Like that is where you are right now, and there's no
Yeah.
judgment. Like
Yeah.
just recognize
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Free choice, everybody.
Free choice. Woo.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah. Awesome. Just starting to notice. So like when you were speaking, just like a real life example, like how many times do we get irritated with someone, especially women, like we're overdoers and overgivers all the time. And then we get this like irritation, man, this person wants this from me again. Why? It's like, oh, well, it's because you set up a pattern of like overgiving and overdoing, and now that's what they expect. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
for instance, that might be someone in the audience might, right? Awesome. Well, that was beautiful. Thanks, April.
You're welcome. And thank you. And
Catch you the next time.
yeah, absolutely.